Please. Someone save my daughter. Those words did not come from a movie script. They came from the trembling voice of a mother who had nothing left but hope. In the heart of St. Luke's Hospital, a woman named Julia Monroe clutched her little girl, Lily, as if her arms alone could keep her alive. The child's breaths were shallow, her cheeks pale, her tiny fingers gripping an old stuffed bunny like it was her last anchor to this world. Julia had begged charities, pleaded with neighbors, even gone hungry so her daughter could eat. But on that morning, as hospital staff refused to begin treatment without payment, she collapsed at the reception desk and cried out for mercy. Most turned away. Some watched in silence. And then, by sheer chance, a man who never should have been there walked in. His name was Ethan Pierce, one of the wealthiest men in America. He had come for a meeting. But what he saw that morning would change not only Julia's future, not only Lily's fate, but his own life forever. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Ethan Pierce was a man the world rarely saw hesitate. His life was defined by sharp suits, luxury cars, and meetings where billions were made or lost with the stroke of a pen. He lived by a rule: keep moving forward, never look back, never get involved. But in that sterile hospital corridor, his steps faltered. His eyes fixed on Julia Monroe, crumpled on the floor, arms wrapped around Lily, a child too fragile to lift her head. A nurse explained the truth in a flat, detached voice. Lily's treatment could not begin without payment. Julia's voice cracked as she begged, "Take me instead if you must, but don't let her die. I'll do anything." Ethan felt something he had buried long ago, the sting of hunger, the sound of his own mother's desperate prayers. For the first time in years, his armor gave way. He leaned toward the nurse and said firmly, "Prepare the child for immediate treatment. Every expense goes to my account." Julia Monroe could hardly breathe, her arms tightening around Lily as if Ethan Pierce's words might vanish like smoke in the air. She had lived long enough to know that promises from strangers rarely lasted, and generosity was something she had stopped expecting years ago. Her voice shook as she whispered, Why would you do this for us?" Ethan did not answer right away. His gaze lingered on Lily's tiny hand, fingers wrapped firmly around her worn, stuffed bunny, a child's last comfort in a world that had been far too cruel. Finally, he said quietly, "Because no child should pay for what the world failed to give, and no mother should beg for mercy that should already be hers." Julia's tears spilled as nurses moved quickly, lifting Lily onto a gurney and rushing her into the treatment room. Ethan didn't leave. He remained beside Julia in the waiting area, his tailored suit and polished shoes sharply out of place on the cracked vinyl chairs. Yet his presence offered a kind of strength she hadn't felt in years. The minutes dragged into hours, each second stretching painfully as Julia Monroe sat hunched in the waiting area, her hands twisted together, her lips moving in silent prayer, torn between fear and hope. Across from her sat Ethan Pierce, unusually quiet, his sharp gaze no longer fixed on the clock or his phone but somewhere distant, deep within himself. For years he had locked away the memory of his own beginnings, a boy raised in hunger, nights when his mother went without food so he might eat, mornings when she stitched together old clothes just to keep him warm. His wealth and power had buried those nights beneath layers of glass towers and polished boardrooms. But Julia's desperation had ripped the seal open. He remembered what it felt like to be powerless, to depend entirely on the mercy of others. At last, the doors opened. A doctor stepped forward, eyes brighter than before. "She's stable," he said. "The treatment is working." Relief washed over Julia, her tears flowing freely, but this time they were tears of gratitude. Julia Monroe tried to form the words, but her gratitude collapsed into sobs before they could leave her lips. She pressed her hands together, whispering fragments of thanks, but Ethan Pierce shook his head gently. Instead of accepting praise, he asked her a simple question. "Tell me about your life." And slowly Julia did. She spoke of juggling 3 cleaning jobs, waking before dawn to scrub office floors, staying up past midnight to mop diners. She confessed to skipping meals so Lily could eat, to nights when the heat was cut off in their apartment, to mornings when she walked miles because bus fare was too much. Ethan listened, and what he saw was not weakness. It was resilience, the unshakable strength of a mother carrying burdens no one should bear alone. Quietly, without ceremony, he made a decision. Julia would be offered a stable position within his foundation, with hours that allowed her to care for Lily. More than that, he created an education trust for Lily, a promise that her future would not be chained by the poverty that had bound her childhood. Julia Monroe shook her head in disbelief, her eyes wet with tears that carried both relief and astonishment. "You don't even know us," she whispered. "Why go this far?" Ethan Pierce held her gaze for a long moment, the faintest of smiles softening his features. "Because once someone gave my mother and me a chance," he said quietly, "and it changed everything. Now it's my turn." His words carried no pride, only truth. Soon, whispers of what had happened spread through the hospital. Nurses, patients, even visitors repeating the story of a billionaire who paused long enough to hear a mother's cry. In a world clouded by greed and indifference, one act of compassion shone brighter than all his wealth. That night, Julia held Lily close, her daughter's breathing stronger, her color returning. For the first time in years, Julia felt safety, hope, and a belief that tomorrow might bring light. And Ethan? He walked away not just as a man of fortune, but as a man who had remembered his humanity. One act of kindness had saved a child, restored a mother, and rewritten a future. But what about you? Do you believe a single act of kindness can truly change the course of a life? Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe so you never miss more powerful stories like this one.